Blessings, everybody. Welcome to the channel. I'm Dane, host of the Rocky Metal Guardian. Hope you're doing well wherever you may find yourselves, and welcome to today's video called What's Wrong with Music These Days? In a previous video, which was entitled, Is There a Great Wealth of Amazing Music Out There? I argued that there is some good and that there is some great music out there. But I've been thinking about this topic a lot more, due in part because of two videos that Rick Beato made recently. One was called The Real Reason Why Music is Getting Worse, and he had a follow-up to that called I Know You're Angry, So Am I. In addition, there is a video on YouTube. The YouTuber is called the video channel is called The Steve Champagne Show, and in a particular video, Steve Champagne really got me thinking about this topic in addition to Rick Beato, and this video is older than Rick's. Again, that's the Steve Champagne Show. Check it out. He talks about music, as so many of us do. And so he touched upon the idea again, is music these days really strong, and is there a great wealth of music out there, or is it slipping? Is rock dead, or is it on life support? All these things so many of us have been talking about for quite a long time. So, and then people have weighed in, not on the Steve Champagne Show, but video, but with respect to Rick Beato's two videos. Again, they're called, if you want to look them up, The Real Reason Why Music is Getting Worse, and the follow-up, I Know You're Angry, So Am I. You want to watch them in order. So you want to watch I Know You're Angry, So Am I second. They are worth checking out. And in addition to those three videos, there's, I can't remember his name, there's this guy who lives in Vienna in Austria. He's in a death metal band. He talked about this. I'm not subscribed to his channel, but I happened to come across it by accident, and he weighed in on Rick Beato. In addition, I can't remember his first name, but his last, Anthony Fontana. He's a big channel, big following. He posted a response and a rebuttal to Rick's two videos, and so I have my own take on things. But if you're not familiar with Anthony Fontana, he's got these huge Harry Potter type glasses, short hair, pretty much shaved, and he's quite good at some things, but I think sometimes he just comes across the way he does because he's biased, and we're all biased, right? Because we have our taste and that sort of thing. But I think some of the points that he made, I don't remember the name of the video. I think some of the points that he made were strong rebuttals against some of the things that Rick said, but others not so much. And then Mike the Music Snob, aka Become the Knight, he also responded to Rick, and he threw Rick under the bus with respect. So again, I'd like to weigh in. I agreed with some of the things Mike said, but some of them I did not as well. So that is the order of the day for this video. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Oh, well, one more thing. Before I continue, remember, nothing here that I'm saying is gospel. It's just one person's opinion, and that's it. I'm not saying you have to believe or agree with what I believe. I'm just sharing my views. Make of that what you will. Oh, in addition, I also saw this morning, but I haven't finished watching the video. But Andy Edwards, his channel, just called Andy Edwards, he has kind of responded in his own view about, and I think it's a response to Rick Beato's video, but he didn't say it was. But I think a lot of us are weighing in because this is such an important topic to us, for those of us who love rock music. So let's get started. Sorry about the long delay, but I felt it was important to lay things down. So while there is some good and some great music to be had out there, I do think there are serious problems with the state of music today. And I'm going to focus mainly on rock music and all its subgenres. Rick, in his video, talked about how numbers are down for rap, hip-hop, R&B, country. But I'm going to I may talk about a little bit of R&B and that kind of thing, but mostly just keep in mind rock music. So in my great is there a great wealth of music out there to be had? A video aforementioned. I spoke about how, as a music fan, you have to do your due diligence. You really do. And what that means is do much field work if you want to find said great music. And what I mean by good, great music is music you go back to time and time again. So, for example, again, this is all based on opinion. So for me, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple is great music, as opposed to Come On Eileen by Dexy's Midnight Runners is not good or great music for me. So again, for some of you, that will be. Now, in order to find good, great music, you have to do field work. You have to dig. You have to scour. You have to investigate. You have to sift. You have to pound the pavement like when you go hunt for a job, right? Essentially, you have to network. You have to go online, right, and talk to people you know, right? Or you pick up the phone and talk to people you know. Or you go up to a stranger. You're out at a club or a bar or a restaurant, right? Or you're at a party, you're at a friend's house watching a game or playing a board or whatever it is. Music's going to come up sometimes, especially if you're a music fan, right? You have to discuss. So you have to pound the pavement. You have to network, talk to people, whether you know them or not, and get a dialogue going. Hey, what have you been listening to? Why is this worth my time? That kind of thing. Now, I'll say this, and I believe it's true. I think it's more of a daunting task now more than ever to find music that you're going to go back to over and over again because of how streaming has destroyed the music industry. There are already tons of videos on this, Rick Beato included. As you know, most anyone with a computer and the money to buy all the software and that sort of thing, and has the appropriate computer skills and the savviness, can make an album these days. Versus back in the day, you needed a record label, you needed promotion from DJs, the record label, having a contract, right? The industry itself, the contacts and the connections. Again, that's the networking. You needed a manager. Think Doc McGee of Motley Crue comes to mind, right? You needed a recording studio. You needed an engineer. You needed someone to mix and master. Those are the two engineers, right? You needed album artwork. You needed lyrics. You needed the liner notes. You need to take photographs of the band and have the album art, right? You needed have the finances for CDs and jewel cases and all that. And you usually were given money from the record label that was them investing in you. You got an advance, right? But because of streaming and other factors, you don't have that much anymore, do you? Unless you're maybe a legendary band like Journey and that kind of thing. Depends. So the DJs become obsolete because of said technology. The DJ was the one, in so many ways, with respect to the record label as well, but the DJ was the one who went out there. Think of, I can't remember her name off the bat now, but the woman who promoted Rush in Cleveland, and Donna Halper, right? There's her name. And so she is so crucial to getting Rush grounded in America. That's just one example. So the DJ is a dinosaur. The DJ is obsolete, no longer used that much, if at all. In so many ways or places. It's totally different now because of technology. You have Pro Tools, you have computers, and computers now quantize music. I'm not going to explain what that is. Check that out if you don't know what that is in Rick Beato. But essentially what quantized music does is it makes music flat and sterile, and it dehumanizes music. You have auto-tune, and you have AI, which is especially the new trend. Again, just because something's trendy or new doesn't mean it's going to be good. Here's the problem with art in general. And this is nothing new, but important. So I want to talk about that. So back in school, I'm 16, it's 1984. I complained to a dear friend of mine about how I felt about television, even with cable TV, and its seemingly endless number of channels. I told him I said, this, with all these channels, doesn't seem TV is still very worthwhile to watch. And my friend commented, he replied, and I quote, "As creative as television could be, it's not very creative at all." Now, this has stuck with me to this very day. And I'm going to make this connection between television and art in general, including music, of course. So with even more choices, including cable, satellite, and streaming, so many choices, that does not solve the problem of, again, as creative as TV could be, it's not very creative at all. So let's stick to, as an example, police detective shows. There's a slew of them since the late 60s. And think of Barnaby Jones and Mannix and you name it, right? But we get a little bit more into the 70s and whatnot, into current police shows. Here's a great number of examples here. So you have, not just police, you have police, detective, hospitals, fire department, EMT, forensic science, police type shows, courtroom drama. Those are the big ones. Let me repeat. Police, detective, hospitals, fire department, EMT, forensic science, police, and courtroom. Those are the big ones, going all the way back to the 60s. So let me repeat. Now here are the examples. Sorry about that. Barnaby Jones, Mannix, Ironsides, Hill Street Blues, Starsky and Hutch, Charlie's Angels, CSI. There's like 3 or 4 different versions of that. CSI New York, CSI Miami, and I think there's 2 more of those. NCIS. I think there were at one point 4 of those. You have the original NCIS Los Angeles. You have a new one coming out where it deals with Mark Harmon's character this season coming up, where how he became who he was, how he got involved in becoming who he became. Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, Chicago Med, ER, FBI, FBI International, FBI Most Wanted, Rosewood, Hawaii Five-0 from the 70s, Hawaii Five-0 from the last 10 years, Bones, SWAT from the 70s and the current version iteration with Shamar Moore, Criminal Minds, Law and Order, original, SVU, Criminal Intent, and then there was a 4th one that had B.B. Newworth in it, and I think they tried a 5th one and it didn't work. So there is an example of this oversaturation of content in the same subgenre, in this case police / detective / hospital, courtroom. They're all connected, right? Now, while I like some of these, of the ones that I just read off, I would say in modern times, the one that I watch is FBI International. I'm a big fan of that show. But again, in most of these, I've watched a little bit here, a little bit there. But I asked myself, going all the way back to 1984, is that all there is to offer? There's this, again, oversaturation of cop and crime drama. So this is the age-old concept of nothing new under the sun. Yeah, it's a hyperbole. There is stuff out there, but it's hard to find. It's that, again, cliched, same old, same old. Even in literature, John Barth, a critic, wrote an essay called The Literature of Exhaustion, and he talked about how, stories over time have gotten stale. There's nothing new under the sun. And think of Joseph Campbell's mythical pattern of the hero. All heroes go under the same 3 stages: separation, initiation, return. There's a great video out there. I can't remember the name of it, but it talks about how Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter essentially go through the same journey. They're both orphans. They both live with their aunt and uncle, etc., etc. So, and I'm oversimplifying that, but take a look if you can find that video. So back to my friend. As creative as television can be, it's not very creative at all. Take television out. You can substitute music, painting, books, movies, film, even video games. It's that cookie cutter, let's keep doing this, that formulaic thing, right? Think of books for a minute. Maze Runner, Divergent series, and Hunger Games. These essentially all the same dystopias, that cookie cutter dystopia kind of thing for young teens. It's that copycat. if you go back to, I want to say the late 80s, maybe the early 90s, you had a movie called Deep 6 9, and then you had The Abyss. And when I took a communications class, my teacher, she talked about all the time, and she gave examples, and I'm not, except for those two, I'm not pulling them in, about how Hollywood deliberately tries to cash in on copying other movies, and they just change some of the plot or some of the characters, and some, they change other things, but essentially they're the same movie, or too similar. Oh, let's do an underwater movie, right? That kind of thing. So Abyss, Deep 6 9 kind of thing. Or if you don't have the copycat, you have the copy of a copy of a copy. Think of the Nine Inch Nails songs, right? Think about, you have Rocky. Right, remember in Airplane 1 or 2, you have the guy goes into the pharmacy and there's a picture of Rocky 32 or whatever, and so he's an old man by now, no hair, skin and bones, that kind of thing. It's meant to be funny, but is the Rocky franchise going to continue with Michael B. Jordan? Is it going to keep? It's gotten old, it's gotten stale. Same thing with Jaws. There were 4 or 5 Jaws. You should have stopped after 2. 1 and 2 are great. Jaws 3 is okay, but nothing new on the side. So you have these two problems. You have the imitation, where people are copying what you're doing, and then you have the copy of a copy of a copy, because you're cashing in on keep doing the franchise. Star Wars comes to mind, right? And how terrible the Acolyte is and all that, right? Now, why the same old, same old? This oversaturation in art in general, and of course in music. The masses seem to not want new, fresh, and innovative art is the argument. Instead, they want status quo, unoriginal content / art. They're afraid to get out of their comfort zone. The industry knows this, and so they pander to the masses who don't want to get out of their comfort zone. Now, I mentioned Andy Edwards. He did a video not too long ago, a few days ago, a week ago, about how all modern guitarists sound the same, and he gives examples of that, so you can check that video out. And then someone posted in the comments about Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa made this comment, so let me quote Frank Zappa here. "I don't want to hear a guitarist play scales really fast. I want to hear someone who surprises me." So you have these internet guitarists who can play super fast. Just because you play super fast doesn't mean it's good. And someone else commented, I didn't write this one down, but that's why some of us like blues so much, because you can incorporate, depending on the genre. I don't want Metallica doing blues, or oversaturating their music with blues, and they've done that. But so I do want some heavy speed, fast stuff, but I also want it to be surprising. I want it to be innovative, right? And we all know that Hammett's gotten very lazy, and I'm not the first person to say that. So this notion of, and this is just one example, and if you're focusing on speed as the main element, you're sucking the spirit and the soul and the life and the humanity out of your guitar playing, right? Is the argument. So now let's talk about this a little bit more. And so think about, and of course it's a two-way street. We blame the masses because this is what they want, and then we blame those who supply the masses what they want because they're pandering. Hence the bands. And think of Night Ranger, for example. Night Ranger goes from this wonderful song, "Don't Tell Me You Love Me," heavy for its day, not super heavy, but heavy for its day. And then why do they go into this more commercial sound with Sister Christian? Oh, I hate that song, on their second album, because the record company pretty much forced them to do it because it was about money. So let me give you a quick anecdote here. Back when Return of the Jedi came out, the third installment of the original trilogy, I had to fight tooth and nail with my two friends to go see this. They wanted to go see some other movie, which essentially was about, seeing some boobage, because it wasn't an R-rated. Well, it was we couldn't have got into an R-rated. It was a movie that had the chance of showing a little skin from the main actress. I can't remember who it was. And I said, no, man, I've been waiting 3 years to see this movie. And so, because this is what the masses wants, science fiction for a lot of people. And again, there are a lot of people who love science fiction, but there are a lot of people who want the police show, the fire, the hospital stuff. Even in movies, they don't want the superhero, and that's gotten overblown too, right? But they don't want something new, innovative and fresh. A lot of people are turned off by science fiction because it's not reality. Well, it may not look reality because it's in the future or parallel universe, but thematically, it has verisimilitude. It reflects real life. So, again, I had to fight tooth and nail to get my friends to come with me to go see Return of the Jedi. I did not want to see some movie just on the chance that we get a side glimpse of someone's, a side of her mammary glands, that kind of thing. So just not very creative, right? I want to see something that has some substance to it, not, a flash of a woman's skin, right? So that shows you the mediocrity that people chase after as opposed to something surprising like Frank Zappa said. And again, of course, Return of the Jedi is very surprising for its day. All right, so now if we talk about Fox, the channel, the TV channel, and yes, there's a Big Bang Theory episode where Sheldon has never forgiven the president, Rupert Murdoch, for canceling Firefly. So back in the day, you had shows like Firefly, The Following, John Doe, and then I can't remember the name of the show, but there was it came on maybe 5 or 6 times and it got canceled. Carl Urban, who's the villain in The Boys, not a show that I watch, but he was a cop in the future, so it was science fiction, still police drama, but it was in the future, and it had a Blade Runner feel to it, and his partner was an android named Dorian. In the first episode, they wake Dorian up from storage to be Carl Urban's partner, and Carl Urban is missing a leg, so he has this implant, a computer leg, and Dorian tells him, put a little olive oil on it, and you won't have the cramps in the morning. And so it had a Blade Runner feel. It was really cool. I watched the first 5 or 6 episodes, and then lo and behold, I'm sorry, and then it gets canceled, and so I was disappointed. Same thing with The Following, and I get The Following got canceled because they painted themselves in a corner with the plot and all that. You can only do this so much over and over. And then John Doe had 1 season, and it left with a cliffhanger and never came back. And so for me, I don't watch Fox much anymore because this is where people's hopes and dreams, as far as writers and directors and actors, their dreams go to die because they get canceled, that kind of thing. And instead, what do you have on Fox now? You have Fire Country and 911. Fire police, right? So there, or EMT. So there you go. That's part of the problem. Now, essentially what this boils down to is supply and demand. Supply creates demand, but you could also say that demand creates supply. So demand creates supply sounds weird, but think about it. When it comes, you've heard the expression, necessity is the mother of adventure. Necessity is the mother of invention. So you have to eat, you need a roof over your head. So in some cases, when it comes to necessities, demand creates said supply. But overall, as you know, supply creates demand. Now, this can be odd or erroneous or just downright unnecessary. Let me give you an example. So if you've ever been to McDonald's in the last 10, 12, 15 years, and I've not been in a while, you know that when you want ice cream and the person behind the counter tells you the ice cream machine is broken, they're lying to you because they don't want to clean it, because it's too much work. And most McDonald's, if not all of them, have an ice cream machine to produce ice cream sundaes, that kind of thing. There's here in the South, I don't know if it's up north here in the United States, but down here in Louisiana and I think a couple other states, we have a chain called Raising Cane's, and they have a very simple menu. They serve chicken tenders, fries, iced tea, lemonade, sodas, and they have, you can, with your chicken tenders, you get fries, Texas toast, their special sauce, and coleslaw. And you can substitute, you can take the coleslaw out and get an extra Texas toast or double fries, that kind of thing, extra sauce, that kind of thing. So that's all their menu: chicken tenders, the sauce, the ketchups, all that, fries, toast, and coleslaw. That's it. no dessert. But you know damn well, if they introduced hamburger meat, hot dogs, people would start buying that too, because you're supplying it, so that creates the demand. If they had brownies or ice cream brownies or ice cream sundaes, that would create the demand. In addition, we have an ice machine at work, and for the longest time, students didn't know about it. And then post-IDA, all the students knew about it. So what are the students doing it? They're cutting, because you can bring water into class if it has a cap, bottled water. They started cutting their bottled waters and putting ice in it. And that could produce a mess that I have to clean up in the classroom. So I was like, no, you can't bring that in. So again, here's a great example. This is probably the best example. This is a long time ago. I don't know if it was on Facebook or YouTube, but someone filmed a fair going on somewhere in the United States, and they were serving in one of the booths, or many of the booths, fried butter. So essentially what they did, whoever's selling it is taking popsicle sticks or of the sort and sticking them in a stick of butter, and then dipping them in batter and then frying them. And at the end of the video, because it's a hot day, the young lady in question, a teenager, give or take, the fried butter had melted into liquid butter, and she's scooping it up with a spoon. And I thought to myself, that is disgusting. Here is a prime example of how people will eat anything, or demand is created simply because of someone supplying. Just because someone's supplying something doesn't mean it's a good idea. So that's an example of that, and how people are suckers for garbage like that, fried butter. All right, now finally, same thing with supply and demand is, can't remember what video I was talking about, my box set dilemma and how my Deep Purple box set, I think, about how I'm weary to buy a lot of the box sets because they're trending, and I'm very careful because it's just I talked about the whole money grab, and someone commented, well, supply for it. Again, just because he said there's, or she said there's, well, of course people are going to buy this because there's a demand for it. Again, just because there's a demand doesn't need it's a good thing. Because again, a lot of these things are money grabs. And again, that's based on opinion, of course. So essentially it boils down to the old Kinks album title, give the people, i.e. the masses, what they want. Now, there is a YouTube channel called The Real Music Observer, who I don't follow. He is a former DJ, and he talked about when he was a DJ, he discovered, and he was surprised by this, and I don't understand the surprise because it makes perfect common sense. He says that DJs played music on the radio not because it was popular, but rather so it would become popular. Well, to me, that makes sense. I'm not sure why he's shocked by that. So he was shocked to learn this, and I thought to myself, well, duh, this is how supply creates demand. So I just wanted to tack on to that. Okay, so again, what's wrong with music is you have this oversaturation, and the reason for that is because, number one, people want to stick to what they know. They don't want to be like Frank Zappa, surprised with innovation and that sort of thing. All right, number two, I don't have the source for this. I think it's from Quora or Reddit, but a while back, maybe 6 months ago, I found a dialogue between a few people about how music is quite mediocre, or there's too much mediocre music out there, and I agree with that. And so the person said, and they used the phrase best stuff, and by best stuff, they mean mediocre music, because for so many people, mediocre music to them is the best stuff. What we find, people like me who find certain things mediocre, for others it's best stuff. So this is the quote. The best stuff appeals to the average. So average music appeals to the average. Mediocre music appeals to the mediocre. Therefore, this best stuff or mediocre or average music is not a reflection of the music itself, but rather a reflection of the audience. Average stuff, mediocre stuff appeals to the average or the mediocre because, and here's where and that's where he stopped. Here's where I come in and added to this. People have preconceived and are preconditioned as to what their taste is because they're unwavering, they're conservative, and by conservative I mean they don't want to change, they don't like to be surprised, they don't want to change, they don't want to experiment and try new things is what I mean. So essentially sales are a reflection of the audience, not the music itself. That makes sense to me. I think somewhere in the back of my head I knew this, I just couldn't formulate that myself. So when I came across this, I was like, oh, that makes total sense. Again, let me repeat. Average stuff appeals to the average, or mediocre stuff appeals to the mediocre, and people think this is the best stuff because they have preconceived or preconditioned as to what their taste is. They don't want to experiment and try new things. And then more importantly, or just as important, the average or mediocre stuff, best stuff, appeals to the average because it's not a reflection of the music, but rather a reflection of the audience. All right, so my comment to that is, well, isn't the audience supposed to follow the artist, not the other way around? Now, here's another reason why music has, essentially been on the decline, on the wane for a long time now. Chasing hit singles. Because of Spotify, once again, more people are focused on getting a single out there and that becoming where they get all the attention as opposed to a full album that's great from start to finish, which was big in the 70s, right? It's really where you get into the 80s where, at least I think, where there's more filler on albums, right? So, and then tied to this, chasing hit singles is bands and artists, because they're chasing hit singles, they lose a big bulk of their fan base because of said change in direction. So, and you have these mediocre albums from these bands and artists or worse. So for me personally, if we think of bands like Rainbow going from a great band when Dio was in the band to a more commercial with Graham Bonnet, and then even more commercial, although I like some of the stuff with Joel and Turner. Van Halen, once 1984 comes around, Eddie Van Halen being a gearheads, introducing keyboards, and so taking the heaviness out of some of the music. Def Leppard, once Hysteria comes along. Rush after Moving Pictures with Signals and Grace Under Pressure, and then even worse with Power Windows and the god-awful Hold Your Fire. And that was a long period where Rush, I just wasn't really into them because of that. I like Signals and Grace Under Pressure, but it's not the Rush I know and love. And then, of course, Genesis with really getting buku commercial, and then Kiss going hair metal after Ace leaves the band, well, post Creatures of the Night. And then King Crimson even sounding like the Talking Heads with Adrian Belew because Fripp breaks up the greatest period with John Wetton, etc. That was the best period for many of us. And then, of course, who would have thought Metallica gets soft with Nothing Else Matters, or going from a thrash band to this stuff many of us don't want to hear. How many bands can you think of that have done this, right? So many, right? So overall, the problem is a two-way street. The suppliers, and then the bands and artists, right, who are giving the masses what they want. So it's the suppliers, whether it's the record label, the bands, the artists, and then those who want this watered down, uninviting, uninspiring, bland, commercial, lacking edge, lacking that innovation, lacking that surprise, to quote Frank Zappa, right? So again, the suppliers are appealing to the masses because sales equals popularity, which equals money. So no longer about the music as priority number one, and therefore integrity takes a nosedive. And so suppliers, all right, whether the band, the record label, or both, etc. Now this might explain a rise in what I call imitation classic rock. I did a video on this. Bands like Red Sky Mary, who sound like Glenn Hughes. I do like them, but quite a bit derivative. Crown Lands doing a Rush and Yes sound on a couple songs on their most recent album. Black Crowes, to some extent, the first album sounds, and I like it. I'm very fond of that first debut. It's my favorite, that and the second album. But you have to admit that they were influenced by the Stones and Humble Pie and the Faces, and it shows. And they did take that inspiration and make it their own. They did the Shakespeare route. That's what you have to do, right? But too many bands don't do that. It sounds too derivative. It sounds too it sounds too much of an imitation or a copy of a copy kind of thing. Think of Led Zeppelin. They took blues songs from artists before their time, right? And other bands have done that, UFO, etc. But they make it fresh. They make it new. They bring, like Led Zeppelin brought a heaviness to Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters, and you film. There's so many, right? So that's what we mean. And because of, think of, if you're familiar with the band Urge Overkill, how they sound a combination of Tom Petty and Heartbreakers meets the Rolling Stones, but they also make it their own. So that, again, that can be good and bad. Think of Joan Jett. She has way too many cover songs in her whole discography. Most of her hits are cover tunes, and I have a problem with that. Too derivative. Think of The Cult, the band The Cult. They go away from this wonderful album sound, they vibe and sound that I love on the Love album, and then they put out Electric, which everyone's commented has an ACD vibe and tone to the guitar. And then the song Love Removal, also on that album, the opening riff is lifted from the Mott song By Tonight, which is on their Drive On LP. If you're not familiar with Mott, Mott is the band Mott the Hoople after Ian Hunter left. And the album Sonic Temple, also from The Cult. Opening track, Hey Hey Baby, Have You Heard the News? Okay, they lift that. And then the song Edie sounds like a derivative song of Led Zeppelin's Tangerine. So, money. Another reason why music is, this is a little bit off topic, but just a sidebar here very quickly. Another reason why bands keep going another reason why music has taken a nosedive, rock music, is because bands keep going when they shouldn't, which may keep people from pursuing other waters, right? Ego, don't know anything else, putting out an inferior product from once great legendary bands. So think Deep Purple, Uriah Heep. I'm not impressed by the 2 new songs that Deep Purple have put out. I was not impressed at all by the last Uriah Heep album and Whitesnake, last couple albums. Vocals, when your vocals can no longer sound, when you can no longer do the task, it's time to quit. Now let me be clear. Once again, I'm not saying there isn't any good or great music. I'm saying that I agree with Rick Beato and that music has gotten worse. I think it's much harder to find truly special cream of the crop music, or as Frank Zappa said, that surprise. Now, it's more difficult to find good, and it's more difficult to find great music. As I said, there's some good, there's some great. I'll come back to that. And that's because there's a much larger pool of mediocre and horrible or bland or uninspiring music out there. There's much more to wade and swim through. The pool has always been tilted. The pool has always been large. The ratio of bad, horrible, mediocre, average to really good, really great has always been skewed, right? But I think the pool of junk has gotten worse. Think of the movie industry, right? Back to that. It's always been this way, where the pool of horrible stuff is a larger ratio to the really, Oscar-worthy or really good. Even if it's not Oscar-worthy, it's something that's really good or great. Because so many movies are made, just like there's so much music made. And that's normal. But think of George Carlin for a minute, who talked about the word special, or if you want to substitute extraordinary or great or amazing or stellar, right? But special, he said, and because there are people out there who love everything and everything's amazing, everything's great, everything's superb, everything's a 12 out of 10. Well, if everything is special, says George Carlin, then special loses its meaning. So finding that special stuff in this big pool of horrible average stuff is normal. That 1 in a million, right? So for so many of us, there's this oversaturation. There's less time, and if things are oversaturated, there's less time to spend and give our full attention on stuff out there. The pool, as I said, has gotten larger. You can find so much on Spotify or Alexa, play, right. But because of that oversaturation, it takes away, like I said before, of being able to find new stuff, because if you're oversaturated, there's so much to choose from, then you're not spending quality time on stuff that you do find because you want to get to the next. It's about that consumption, that consumerism, that materialism. So you're not in the old, so when Rick Beato talks about, hey, it used to be, you didn't have a lot of money, you took the bus, or I said that, you go buy your album, you come home, you only have a small amount of stuff to listen to, and so you spend more time with it, so you learn to appreciate that. It's harder to appreciate for many of us if there's so much out there and we're oversaturated with that stuff. So our time is going to be taken up by all this stuff. If we have 30,000 CDs, the really good stuff, the best stuff in there is not going to have our full attention all the time. And so you're stretching yourself out like not enough butter over too much bread kind of thing. So it used to be this ritual, right? This event where you plant yourself, you lay down, or you sit on the couch, or, you get in your comfy clothes and you get the headphones and you put it on the turntable or the cassette or whatever it is, and you're actively listening. It becomes an experience. You're looking at the liner notes, you're looking at the album artwork, you're taking it all in, you're making time. You're not listening to it as background noise while you're cooking or playing with the cat or whatever, right? So Rick's talking about appreciating what you have, and it makes it more special that way, versus taking what you have for granted because of your consumerism. So essentially, the metaphor is, another metaphor as opposed to a big pool is, yes, there's some good and some great music out there, but it's like when people go out to drill for gold, platinum, and find diamonds, right? Gold and platinum works better, but diamonds, you have to sift from the sand, that kind of thing, or what have you, South Africa and all that, or what have you. But if we stick to ore as the metaphor, you have to get the gold and the platinum and the silver, or the metal that you want, the precious metals. You have to take that out away from the impurities, right? There's more ore or impurities than there is gold, silver, and metal or diamond or whatever metaphor you want to use. So there's a lot more impurities out there. And so again, and that's normal. That's the way it's supposed to be, because if everything was dynamite, then that dynamism would lose, that specialness would lose its meaning. But the point I'm making is, while it's always been this way, that the ratio between average, mediocre, and horrible music is much higher than good, great, and amazing music, the ratio of bad is even worse. So that's my argument. Now, in addition to what I'm saying something by omission. If you've paid attention, when I've talked about what's the positive out there that is out there, I've said, here are my phrases. I said, there's some good music out there. I said, there's some good, let me start over. I said, there's some good music out there. I said, there's some great music out there. Currently, I've never said this in this video. I've never said there's some legendary music out there with respect to modern bands and artists. So we have our legendary artists. We have our legendary bands. Some of these were legends in their own time, like Led Zeppelin, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, etc., right? But currently, while we have some good music, and while we have some great music, and it's difficult to find it, I don't think there are any current new legendary bands or artists. So I will explore this in my next follow-up video. which is why we have little or no legendary bands anymore. Thanks for watching. God bless. Take care now. Bye.